Hello my Elementor friends. So earlier today I put up a tutorial on how to do these types of what you call them, box decorations using BEM or block element modifier class naming and the class system in Bricks Builder. And I wanted to just show you that even though Elementor does not have a class system like Bricks Builder does, you can still do the same thing in Elementor. So I'm going to show you how we do that. So if we're looking at the right hand side here, you can see I've got some images and I've got some decorations. Up the top left I've got little dots here, and on the bottom right I've actually got an animating circle, ring of circles. Now I'm just showing you there that it can be done, and if we look at these elements, I'm just going to grab one of them and look at that decoration box there. The only settings I have on this is I've got it set to full width, and then in the advanced I've got a bunch of classes that I've added to it, which is what gives us this effect. Now this is a box, so that could be anything in that box. It could be a video, a text box. I've just selected images for this purpose. And there's a couple other things that I've done in here as utility classes as well, which I'll show you as well. So what I'm going to do is start by just deleting all of this and starting again. So first thing we do is create a container. We want a row. And by the way, I'm using the Flexbox containers. It's just easier because the direct access to the containers. You can do this with your sections and columns, but you'd need to change the way the CSS works. So basically we have a single container here, and it's boxed, which means in Elementor there's a div which gives you your box container under here that you can't access, you can't see, unfortunately. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to grab another container, stick it inside there, and we're going to tell it to be full width. And the reason we do full width is because we want this to behave like a div, not like a full width container. And when you create box containers in Elementor, it adds additional div, which is a wrapper. I can't remember what they call it, either inner container or something like that, and we don't want that. So I'm just going to, on that container there, just for now I'm going to duplicate that and duplicate it again. And you remember I made this a row, so they're right next to each other. What we're going to do is work on one of these containers here. So I've created a bunch of classes here, and I'm going to go through those a little bit later, and I'll make these available. So I want to make this a decoration box. So what I have to do is grab that class and make it a decoration box. I got rid of my padding and set my position to relative and my isolation to isolate. We then want to grab the after decoration. That's going to give us our, sorry, my mouse is not working as well as it should do. And we want to add that class as well. And then we also want to add this class here, the before class. Okay, so we've got our two decorations there. Grab any old image and stick it inside there. And pick an image. Let's pick the octopus on the plate. So we've got an octopus on the plate, and we've got our decorations happening. Now at the moment it's animated. I might just remove that animation from it because it's a little annoying at the moment. So I'm just going to remove that animation. I was just putting it there to show that it can be done, and update that. Okay, update, and just do a refresh. Right, so we can't see that at the moment because what do we do here? Oh, for the animation, sorry, I made it. I'm going to make that bottom minus, say 50 pixels. And right minus 50. I'm going to set the, it's got this weird animation thing happening there. It must be the way it applies in here. I set that to 150 and that to 150. It's a little weird. So okay, I'm going to just do an F5 here because we shouldn't have any animation happening at the moment. Some strange things happen in the editor. There we go. So there's no animation happening on that. Right, so our CSS here, what we've done, I'm just going to leave the site settings there, is we've added a image, F5 on that, because I updated the CSS. Right, so there we go. So we've got a little decoration at the top left, another one down the bottom right. I'm going to delete these containers and just reduplicate that a couple of times. Okay, we'll change our image. So I'll pick this one here, and then I'm going to pick the next one of this girl here. Okay, now you can see here it's a bit weird because of the way that these images are stretching, because they're all different dimensions. So there's another utility that I've created here, which is my aspects ratio 16:9. I'm just going to add that to each of these images. So it makes the images all 16:9. And now these ones look squashed because of the way it's working. So I'm then going to use my object fit cover utility. I mean, this you can do in Elementor, but while we're using these classes, we might as well use these utility classes. And the next one, we can see that this one here, because it's by default centering the image, we want the girl's face to be at the top. So I've got another utility class, which is object position. That should say top. Oh, top center. There you go, top center. That's correct. So I'm using the BEM conventions here. I've got the two dashes, which means that's a modifier. So it's object position top center, object position bottom center. So they're different modifiers. So we're going to add that on this girl. And now the image is aligned to the top. So they're all 16:9, they're all set to cover, and this last one is set to the top, and we've got our decorations there. All right, now where this is really cool, actually I'm going to go, now that I've got the structure there, I'm just going to bring up my site settings on this page and go to my custom CSS so you can see it change on this page. Okay, now see this bottom right? Maybe we don't like it being that big. We just change the after here to say 100 pixels. So it's 100 and 100. And maybe you want it to be less than that, so make it 30 and 30. And you can see all of these changing because it's related to the class. Now, what I've done is uploaded these to the media using using WordPress Media, and then just grab the URLs to those SVGs. Doesn't have to be an SVG, it can be any image you like. In this case, because they were black, I've told it to invert. I'm going to show you what we can do to get this right. Now, the Bricks system does have an advantage where you can do a lot of this in the Bricks editor, so a lot of the settings here can apply to those classes. You can't do that in Elementor, unfortunately, but you can still do this. So I'm going to view the page, and let's have a look at, for example, this element here. We can see our, down in the Chrome DevTools, we can see it there. So maybe this invert, we don't want to be 100. Maybe we want that to be 50%. Okay? Or maybe you leave it on 100 and we want the opacity to be 1, so it's white. Maybe you only want it to be, say, 0.3 3, so it's very transparent. So you can change all that here. You can play around with your settings here in the Chrome DevTools. So maybe you want it up there, and maybe that's what we want for that. So all we'd have to do now is grab all of these rules, just grab all that as it is, come back to Elementor, site settings, custom CSS, and just replace all that content there, and then we've just updated that. So it's easy to manipulate this visually and then just update with those settings. We'll look at this top one here, so the little dots, and that is a size of 30 pixels. Let's make that bigger, say 60 pixels and 60 pixels. Oops. So now we just made that bigger. Maybe you want to rotate it a little bit. So rotate. Maybe, oops. Rotate maybe 45 degrees. Now we just rotated that around. So just watch it, and if I change this rotation, just watch this as I move the rotation. So we can actually set the rotation using our Chrome DevTools. We're happy with it, we leave it there, copy that, stick it into our CSS rule here. I think I also, what else do I do? I change the size to 60 pixels. Width and height 60 pixels. So let's change that there. I was on the wrong one, sorry. Width and height 60 pixels. And my rotate of 96 degrees. And then we can see it's done, it's rotated this exactly the same as it is there. So yeah, so you can do this in Elementor. You can't do it from the settings UI, but you certainly can do it in here. Now I'm using Elementor Pro, which gives me this site settings where I can add custom CSS. I typically don't do that. I use a code manager for that. If you have free, I'll just cut that out of there. If you don't have Pro, so this is not going to work for you, what you have to do, so if I do an F5 here, so I've got no classes now. So what you'd have to do is go to your appearance, customize, and in your additional CSS you can paste it in there, publish that. Okay, and then it works as well. So if you don't have Pro, you can stick that into your customizer CSS. If you do have Pro, you can stick it into the site settings CSS. If you have something like this code manager, you can put it in there. So I'll just say, for example, add new here, and we're going to call that, we're going to stick it in the header because it's CSS, make it CSS, put it there, and we'll call this box decorations, or decoration. Yeah, box decorations. CSS. Whether we want to create a file or not, this is I use Snippets Organizer for this. If I publish that, I'll come back to here and clear that out. So I've got no CSS in the customizer. I've got no CSS in my site settings. So if I go into custom CSS, there's no CSS in there. But I've got it in my code manager here, and now if I do a Shift Control F5, it still works in there. So it's entirely up to you. 3 ways I've shown you to do it. One is the site setting CSS, the second is the customizer CSS, and the third is using a code manager. In this case I'm using Scripts Organizer. You can use code snippets, you can use WP code box, whatever your preference is, it doesn't really matter. But this just proves that you can do BEM style class naming and application in Elementor. You just can't change any of those classes in the UI, but you can certainly apply those. Actually, that hasn't got the classes. I'll just do an F5 on there. We can see the classes applied. All right, so that's how you do this in Elementor. So if you like this kind of thing, hit the subscribe and hit the like. Thank you.